are considering ending your own life. This is going to be all-encompassing, meaning I'm going to talk about the mind and the body because those things are interrelated. They affect one another. And so what is happening is when we are in a place of suicidal ideation, we've got a really negative feedback loop that's spinning out of control. And we have to find ways to throw a wrench into that cycle and stop it. And sometimes that comes from the body and sometimes it comes from the mind, but they both affect one another. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is your breath and breathing. Your breath is 100% connected to your nervous system. And when you are in a fight-flight response, when your nervous system is hypervigilant and out of control and you're panicked, you're in a sympathetic nervous response. That is directly connected to the inhale. You can Google check me on this, it's kind of fascinating. The parasympathetic nervous system response, the thing that calms us down, is directly connected to the exhale. So the kind of breathing that I'm talking about to bring yourself out of a state of fight or flight is to extend the exhale and make it longer than the inhale. The fastest way that I know how to do that is to use something called straw breathing. I did not invent this. It's been around for however long straws have been around. But you'll simply inhale through your nose and exhale out the straw. Why does that work? Because it takes all the thinking out of it. Generally, people think that they're taking a nice long breath, but they're really not. So if you put a straw in your mouth and breathe out the straw, it's physics. It takes a lot longer to get all the air out of that small little channel. And you do that for a couple of minutes and you're starting to reset your nervous system. That's directly connected to your heart rate. Your heart rate speeds up and so does your pace of breath when you're in a state of panic or duress. So when you slow your breathing down, you're also going to slow your heart rate down. But we can also use the heart stuff first to slow the breath down. And one of the ways that we do that is through body temperature. So you can use an ice cube, use a cold shower, change your body temperature to shock the system and intervene in that cycle. Those are the first two. For those of you that are counting, these are also not in any sort of particular order. They can be interchanged, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. The next thing is human connection. Really, really important. So if you're isolated and you're having thoughts, hopeless thoughts, thoughts about hurting yourself, moving to a more public place, even if that's your family room or your dining room table, is a really good idea. So is going out into a public place. Today I took a walk in the park, and as I was walking I was thinking, yeah, this is what I used to do when I was really highly depressed, is go to public parks and just be around other people. When I didn't feel connected to anybody, at least I could go around and watch other people being connected and be in nature. So moving to a more public place is really important. The next thing would be telling someone, and that someone can be a hotline. If you don't feel like you have anybody personally that you can talk to about this, use a hotline number. Somebody cares, I promise you. Look at this crowd. It's kind of unbelievable. I have been, what I think, in the mental health field, honestly, since I started therapy at 12 years old, and I have never seen a fundraiser like this before. So it's pretty freaking cool to be having this conversation and gathering this many people for a topic this serious. So telling somebody, that could be a family member, it could be a teacher, it could be an administrator, your friend, whoever it is, but we got to talk to somebody. And I promise you that your symptoms are not obvious to those people in your life. Oftentimes, we're in shock when somebody chooses to end their own life because, again, the symptoms are not obvious. The other thing that I want to say around this is a lot of people feel like, and I'm going to be self-disclosing here, sometimes I feel overwhelmed because of all of the attention that my profession gets around this subject matter, as far as people think a therapist, that's the one and be-all, end-all person that we should be talking to. And while that's true and helpful, it's not enough. There's a national shortage of mental health clinicians in this country and in many countries across the world. In the state of Kansas alone, Kaiser Permanente put out this research. In the state of Kansas alone, there is one psychiatrist for every 532 patients. And we are only meeting the need, mental health-wise, in the state of Kansas by 56%. So that means 40, what's the math on that? I don't know. For some odd 40% of the need is not being met in the state of Kansas. So what this means is, what I said when I first started talking, we need more than just therapists and psychiatrists to be dealing with us. We need all of you to be point people in this conversation. The next thing is, how do you tell someone how? How do you do that, right? It's really, you may not even understand what's happening inside of you. So how do you begin to even tell somebody else? So I'm going to use myself as an example again. At age 12, I self-diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and I did that because I was watching the Today Show on Thanksgiving break, and they did a special on OCD. And then a newspaper article in the Kansas City Star came out, and they talked about OCD, and I read it. And I thought, that is what's been going on with me for the last year and a half. My goodness. I had no idea. I rolled that newspaper up. I don't know, my mom may remember this differently. I rolled it up, walked into the living room and handed it to her and said, I have this. So my suggestion to you is, when you don't have the words, find it somewhere else. Maybe there's an article you've read that's touched you in some way, or a social media post. There's some stuff I don't love about social media, and I'll get to that in a second, but one of the things I do like is we can relate sometimes to what somebody else is going through, and that can be a positive thing in this sense, that you could snapshot or screenshot something that is impacting you, that you feel like relates to you, and show it to your point person, to your mentor, to your friend's parent, to your teacher, and say, this is me, this is happening to me. The next thing is to create a safe environment around yourself, and you're going to need that point person's help to do that. What that means is removing anything that you might use to harm yourself. That could be things like guns, razors, car keys, whatever it might be. But I want to make this point, and this is where some of you may disagree with me. I think it's actually impossible to get rid of everything that somebody could use against themselves. So this is not the one answer here. It's a small part of it, and it can be very helpful, but a determined person will find the means. The next one is to get sober or stay sober. So this may be the number one thing that needs to happen first. So if you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, you got to get sober first before we can deal with this. I don't need to go into detail of why that is, do I? No? I will throw out one thing. Alcohol is a depressant, okay? And it causes your liver to do a lot of work to break that alcohol down, including secreting an enzyme that causes a stress response in the body, which is oftentimes why the next day after you've had a binge drinking or just a couple of drinks, the next day you feel a heightened sense of irritability or anxiety. Not a good mix. Sleep. We all know this, but sleep is really freaking important. And the main reason why is because at night, your brain secretes cerebral spinal fluid that cleanses out your brain and clears you for the next day. So it's kind of like a dishwasher. So if you interrupt a dishwasher in the middle of its cycle, you're gonna have some crusties on your forks and your plates and all that stuff, right? And then imagine just continuing to build on that and drink out of that the next day or eat off of that plate. That's what you're doing when you don't get enough sleep. So you're bringing yesterday into today, and then the next day, and then the next day. Pleasant events checklist. Really important. If you don't have one of these, it's kind of fun. You could create it tonight. What that means is a list of things that you do that make you feel really good, that you can count on to be helpful. You could give that to your point person so that they have that list as well. These are things that do not include drugs and alcohol. These are things like going for a walk, playing with your dog, doing art, cooking, cleaning. Some people find cleaning fun and a positive, pleasant event. Taking photographs, playing board games. These are things that people find pleasure in and can be really helpful, because again, all we're looking for is that momentary shift, something that's going to intervene in that negative cycle. Next, focusing on others. Depression is a disorder of too much self-focus. We think that everything that is bad is happening because of us. So one of the ways that we counter this is by focusing on other people. And I think one of the things that holds a lot of the young people that I work with back is not having a sense of value within themselves. We don't do enough, I feel like, in our society to serve one another, and I think one of the greatest ways that you can feel important and valuable is by serving other people. So focusing on how you can be helpful to somebody else is a great antidote. Next, this is where I say no on social media, temporarily. When you're in a really heightened state or an at-risk state, social media is not necessarily your friend. We get a lot of contagious ideas through social media, And reading too many details and over-identifying with other people can be really harmful. So removing yourself from that for at least a temporary amount of time is really important. Seeking professional help. Notice I didn't make that number one. It is important, but there are other things sometimes in the moment that need to come first. And I think seeking the right professional help takes time. Just like any other profession, not all clinicians are the same, and we're not all going to be a good fit for you. So it takes time to find the right person and asking the right questions, and you're going to need help to do that. Finding the right clinician will help you do the following things. Finding purpose beyond yourself, because that's a natural antidote to these feelings of depression and hopelessness that you experience when you have suicidal ideation. So hopefully your therapist is going to be a guide to helping you find purpose again, beyond yourself. The other thing is they're going to accompany you while you work really hard. This was something some of my clients wanted to make sure that I told you tonight as well, is that changing this takes hard work and it takes commitment. I did not recover from suicidal ideation in 1 year. It took me several years of work with a therapist, and now I haven't had thoughts like that in over a decade. It is absolutely possible, but it takes commitment and work, and you need a support system to do that. The other thing a therapist can be helpful with is finding what you value, because what you value is going to affect everything else. How you see the world, how you relate to other people, how you feel about yourself. So you can think about some of my values are relationships, peace, authenticity. Those things guide me in the decisions that I make and the people that I surround myself with. So if your values are things like achievement, performance, that is going to also increase or decrease your stress response based on what you choose to value and how you live that out. I was going to offer you a list of things that your support persons can do for you, but Emma's going to talk about that, I think, a little bit. I just want to say one more thing, which is some final resources for those of you who are kind of junkies for books and resources that exist. I'm going to throw those out at you. It's my last card. Hang on. So the first thing is going to be parent support. I am starting a parent group. It's starting in 2 weeks. I've just been really blessed to be offered a space that's a lot bigger than my office, so that we should be able to fit in a lot of people into these. These are non-clinical parent support groups, meaning you don't need to be a client, you don't ever need to be a client, previous or in the future. We're just gonna have a conversation and talk about, because I think one of the things that's missing from this is parents really, really, really wanna understand and support you, and they don't know how to do that. So we need a safe forum for parents to be able to ask really vulnerable questions and get the support that they need. So if you're interested in that, my website's juliaharkleroad.com. Books, 7 Spiritual Laws for Parents by Deepak Chopra. Best book you're ever gonna buy, right there, for if you're a parent in this room. It's really simple and you could probably read it in one evening. It's gonna help you realign your own value system and help you support all the young people that are in your life, either in your house or your kids' friends. Next one is The Price of Privilege by Madeline Levine. It was written, I believe, in 2008. It couldn't be more true than it is today. 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Awesome, especially young men in this room. That is an investment book, and it may take you quite a bit of time to get through it, but it's really good. Popular by Mitch Prinstein. And Anything by Brene Brown. The Gifts of Imperfection is pretty awesome. Yes, we like that book. Also Project Daylight, which is a part of the Coterie Theater. It's a new project the Coterie Theater is launching, and it hopefully will be in all of your schools within the next year. It is a mental health initiative that the Coterie Theater has kind of put together, and it will be a presentation similar to ones that they've been doing for the last decade on AIDS and HIV, but it will bring in an actor and a social worker or a psychologist to have conversations, very real conversations about this subject matter, and then follow up with parents. So I'm going to leave it at that. You can find out more at juliaharkleroad.com if you want to attend that parent group, and thanks for being here.